welcome. This is Diego Accord here in the Ramblings of a Board Guy, and I want to talk about Street Fighter 6 and the Alex patch, most notably for me, Ryu. So, Street Fighter 6 is the first modern Street Fighter game that I put any amount of time into. And, when Street Fighter 4 came out, I really hated everything about that game. The way it looked, the way it played, the way it animated, so on and so forth. Just did not like it. And the input latency was just a big deal to me personally. And that said, that's actually the reason that the whole community went from PlayStation to Xbox that generation, because the Xbox versions of the games had less input delay than PlayStation. Now, that said, even at that time, I actually didn't even know what it was. I just knew that, oh man, when I play Street Fighter 4, compared to old games, it feels like I'm underwater, like I'm playing something and there's a delay between me and what's happening when I press a button. That's just what I felt without knowing the actual term for it. So that plus the presentation, I just didn't like that game. The only thing that Street Fighter 4 has, to me, is music, and that's it. Street Fighter 5, ugly game as well. Even more stripped down than Street Fighter 4 in terms of gameplay. So, just, not a good time. I don't like the whole community actually did not like that game. So it wasn't just me. But even, regardless of the community's feelings towards that game, it was still Street Fighter, a mainline Street Fighter game, so it was going to get played. Now, I did come to think that game was alright at the end. When that last season came out, they opened the mechanics a little bit and brought some characters out that were interesting, such as Rose and Seth. And I know Dan had an Infinite that was quickly patched out. But yeah. So, unfortunately, when that game got decent to me, it was, the game was dead, basically. It's that last little season. So, it is what it is. So anyway, Street Fighter 6. And then another thing about those games is Yoshinori Ono's, I don't know what it is about him. Because, Cross Tekken also had this, but all the stupid ass characters running around in the background, I fucking can't stand that shit. So Street Fighter 6, the first modern Street Fighter game that did not make my eyes fucking vomit upon seeing it. And also does not have stupid ass characters running around in the backgrounds. They're being all wacky and goofy. Like, I don't like that shit. However, I will say that Street Fighter 5 has amazing backgrounds. And, when you mod the characters out, it's even better. Street Fighter 6's backgrounds look good, but, there's just something about them. They don't lend themselves to, let's say, there's a lot of ways to replace music. I modded my Street Fighter 5 to replace all the music. I don't even know what any music from Street Fighter 5 sounds like, except for Charlie or Nash. Nash's theme is the only good music in that game, as well as the remixes of the Super Street Fighter 4 character select music that's in the arcade mode. And I actually didn't even know that existed until probably last year or something like that on YouTube. I'm like, oh man, I've owned this game this whole time and I didn't know about that shit. So I ended up modding that in the Street Fighter, so in Street Fighter 6 you don't have to mod the music because, there's a jukebox mod, so as long as I have the MP3s, I can put whatever music I want anywhere. But in Street Fighter 5, you had to mod the music. You had to actually go in and change the files and all that stuff. So that's what I did when I did play Street Fighter 5 in that last season. I modded monitor all the music. And I don't, I could probably look up how to do it if I wanted to ever play that game again, but I probably wouldn't. Like, I remember it being like a tedious task, and I wouldn't play the game on stock music, so therefore I just would never play that game again. So anyway, yes, Street Fighter 6, first Street Fighter that is not an eyesore immediately. Although, no game is going to be, or no Street Fighter game seems to be perfect, at least in terms of the 3D era, because Street Fighter 6 has pretty bad music. The only things I like are going to be Ken and fucking Luke, and that's pretty much it. However, Jukebox Mod means that doesn't matter. But it is harder to find music to match stages, because I'm not going to do it by character, because every character doesn't have a theme. Like original, characters from old games, of course I could just give them themes from old games that I prefer. But there's characters that are brand new characters, and I'd have to make up a theme of them, but it would be from something else, whether it's real music or another video game or something. But it wouldn't be another Street Fighter music. I'm not gonna give a character, an established character, somebody else's music from another game. So I'm just anal about that kind of stuff. Maybe I could give Kimberly some Guy music, maybe, but nah. So I just do it by stages. But anyway, but that's separate. That's a separate thing. So, Ryu patch. So, Kimberly and Ryu are who I used, in the beta. Both characters got nerfed from the beta to the retail patch, or retail version of the game. And unfortunately, with that being the case, it made me not play the game as much as I would have, because both characters were very weak. And, for me personally, I don't want to be forced to use a character to play a game. If a character that I want to play is too much of an obstacle in themselves, I'm just not going to play that game. And because I'm not a pro player traveling to tournaments and stuff, the incentive to play somebody else to be competitive in the game is not there for me. So I'm just not going to play that game. Now, when Street Fighter 6 came out, played it for a little bit because it was the new stuff to play. And then I only played Mortal Kombat, when Mortal Kombat came out. And then I moved to Tekken when Tekken came out. And then when, they started giving Ryu buffs, I started coming back around to Street Fighter, because it's oh, my character's better, so let me actually play this game. And, that's, so yeah, that's how I started getting back into it. Got master with a couple of characters at that time, and that was when I got him, first time I even tried to get him to master. Now, of course, I could have probably ran through and got anybody I was interested in even remotely playing, could have gotten every character to master, especially at the beginning of the game. Kind of like how everybody goes to try to get mastered with a brand new DLC character. I'm sure all these people running Alex to master in 2 days or something. Just, well, nobody's used to the matchup, so let me run master real quick. A bunch of that kind of stuff. So anyway, with Ryu, that was the beginning. They started just giving him buffs and buffs and buffs, and to the point that everybody was complaining that oh man, he's too strong. Now, people are used to him, like, being not great. I'm like, he's great in, hyper fighting, super turbo, alpha 2 and 3. I mean, alpha 1, but I mean, everybody's kind of like great in alpha 1, except for M. Bison. Like, even Dan is able to cook in alpha 1. Fucking cross up, crouching LP into crouching HP into Gale kick. And it's like fucking, damn near half damage. So everybody can kind of cook in alpha 1, but that game has like fucking full-on Magic Series chains for most people, except for fucking M. Bison, which is the reason that he's ass in that game. But yeah, so he's good in like a couple of games. Super turbo, but you got to deal with Vega and Balrog in that game. So, but he was good in this. He was good in 6. But I think people were overstating how good he was in 6 at his most buffed, because he's going to be one of the highest used characters no matter what in Street Fighter. Okay, it doesn't matter if he's actually good or not, he's going to be one of the highest used characters. So if they actually do buff him, people are going to be, and also he's accessible in terms of gameplay. Like, you don't have to do, specific setups and try to do meaties that give you plus frames and all this stuff. I mean, he has stuff like that. I mean, everybody pretty much does have some kind of stuff like that. But, like doing like Gen Rise setups and trying to get them in there meaty that will allow you to link more stuff if you hit it the right way and all this other shit. Like, he doesn't need all that stuff. So he's accessible and he may be overrepresented in terms of like how many people play him overall. And this is from internet, from just basically like ranked online, ranked and casual online matches. It's probably a very, very high amount of him. So you consider all the buffs, how accessible he is, and how many there are. It seems like it's a bigger problem than it is. That's the way that I look at it. It looks like a bigger problem than it actually is because of how overrepresented he is. Because even at his best, and people were just being fucking going overboard with it. Like, oh man, he's the best character in the game, or best, in the best 3. And I'm like, no, the best 3 have to be JP, Mai, and Ed. Those have to be the best 3. Because, I mean, Mai out Ryu's Ryu. Ed just has those fucking weird buttons and those weird specials you gotta do with flicker and all this other shit, and moves that can just tag you from half fucking screen and just confirm in the drive rush cancel and all this other stuff. And then JP, you gotta get in on him, and that's the thing. I'm like, they took away that matchup from Ryu. You win. No, but they took away that matchup. Like, that was always a hard matchup because you still got to get through stuff. Now, they buff his fireball speed and like how many hits, I think like an EX or a Denjin will break up if you're trying to, go through stuff like all the shit JP has on the screen. So they did that, but then of course, like, when you get in on them, you can fucking destroy him when you do finally make it through his fucking screen of fuckery. But now with the nerfs, you can't do that. You cannot keep oppressive pressure on him when you finally do get in. It's just not even, the Shogek. If you get him burned out, of course he's got less reps on the Shogek, and then getting him burned out is going to be harder because they took away half the drive damage on the Shogek, on the light Shogek, and then you've got the universal overhead nerf, which of course affects him because he had one of the best drive rush overheads in the game, so that gets nerfed. And then of course solar plexus, you keep him in place and he just has to deal with your fucking bullshit because you had to deal with his bullshit to get there. Now, now what? Nothing. And he got buffs. And he got fucking buffs. I'm I haven't even played, I've not really touched the map or the game since the buffs, just knowing that, that is there to wait on me. I was doing some mods, so I have some character swap mods for Ryu, for female characters, and they are on Nexus, called Ryu, because the base mod has a jury face, but I use a hair mod on top of that actually just makes it look more like a generic female. So there's a couple of those that are swapped over to Ryu. So there's the Ryu EX, because the original mod is called Jury, or EX Ryu. So the original mod is called EX Jury. It's like this version of, some version of Jury with some, kind of gooner outfit on, boobs all out on display and stuff like that. And almost a catsuit kind of sort of thing. Well, I had to go in the blender and remove some of the stuff, not the clothes, but the original model had, for some reason, the original model had the hair made into this crown thing, and it was part of the mesh. So I had to undo that to be able to use a hair mod on top of it. And then there was also a big spike colored necklace, or a big spike collar. So I had to take that stuff off, and then I went in and recolored everything to give some classic colors for the character so it would match. And then there's the Reina, the Jury Reina cosplay, which I did hair swaps as well. And then there was one other called Mio Hoodie, which also has hair swaps to make it more just, But anyway, you can find those on Nexus, and especially necessary would be my female voice for Ryu. So the previous version, so I just did a new version with an actual Japanese voice actress. The previous version I did for the character swaps, so because you can do the character swaps, you can character swap anybody. I mean, there's going to be problems depending on what model that you swap and how they look versus who you're swapping to, because obviously if you swap if you swap somebody that's short to Sagat, that character's going to look fucked up. Female to Ryu, if you want to just be, you just want to be a gooner or whatever. I mean, Mai works, Cammy works, Chun-Li works, Kim works, and Jury works. Because if the characters are not similarly sized enough overall, and the proportions are too different, then the swaps are going to look bad, but all the swaps look fine on on Ryu. The only problem is if the model that you use has bare feet, their feet are just a little bigger, even sometimes if not. Like his feet are going to be like bigger than the regular version of the characters will be. But that's not really too big of a deal. But anyway, I have a female voice mod so that you just won't have the regular voice playing. The previous version was done with AI. So I had a video of all of his voice clips from YouTube. I ran it through 11 labs and I got results. That's all I can say is they were results. So I had to figure out exactly how the voices are clipped and set up in the game, which I was able to do. I had to actually get the files unpacked from the game, like the voice files, and listen to, they're called WEMs, W-E-M. So you had to figure out what number WEM should be matched up with what. With him, he has 130, like in Japanese, he has 135 different WEMs, at least in gameplay. Then you have other screens or whatever, you have to like try to find all that stuff. The only thing that I was concerned about replacing was the character select as well as the in-game fighting. That was it. So actually 136 WEMs. So you have to go through, it's a very, very, very shitty process that you've got to do. So you've got to go through, you got to play the WEMs and see what is what, and then in your, in the version, whatever you have, your results that you've got from, the AI, the 11 labs, you have to match it up. So if he says, oh, and then you have your clip from the video that's, like you have to, you got to clip that and number it as it should be in the game. And then you have to go through, convert everything what it needs to be. Like after you cut everything up as it should be, you got to go through, convert everything to what it should be, and then try to get the sound, like the volume correct to the game. Otherwise it'll be lower than everybody else or higher than everybody else. So you've got to do that, and then you got to put everything back into a file that the game can read as a mod, and then you got to test it, make sure everything is said when it's supposed to be said, make sure nothing is weird, because in the original mod that I did, the original version of that, there were some oddities that I had to change. Like, of course, with it being AI, the tone of things that were said just wasn't on, correctly all the time, like Hadouken and stuff like that. So what I did was I went into World Tour and grabbed some avatar voices, like, when you create your avatar. So I create the female avatar and did some of the special moves like the Hadouken, Shoryuken, because you're going to hear those more than anything. So most of the grunts and even other stuff was like decent, but the main things were fucking flat as hell. Shoryuken, Hadouken, so I had to go record those copies, or record the avatar voice, the avatar female voice saying that stuff, and then I had to clip those and put those in there to make that sound better. And even then, you still have to clip specifically, like light, medium, and hard for the Tatsumaki, because in the light one it's like Tatsumaki, and then Tatsumaki Senpu, and then Tatsumaki Senpuki. So you still have to like clip that into 3 versions, and like, the DP, it's like Shoryuken, and then Shoryuken, and all this other stuff. So it was a lot of fucking work. But, you know, at one point, I mean, recently, I just decided, you know what? If I could do that with 11 Labs, I can definitely have, like, an actual person do the voices. So that's what I did. I reached out on Fiverr, got with a Japanese VA who I felt would because I wanted the voice to sound like just Ryu is a female, so he's not going to be cute. It's not going to be like cutesy or anything like that. So that's what I want. And she had the ability to do what I just like. Ryu is a female, not girl doing Ryu moves, because that would be like kind of Sakura. And you know, I don't really like Sakura. Like, there's no game that I prefer to play her in over Ryu himself. And it's just due to gameplay reasons. Like, you know, her stuff is just different. It's not like the stuff, you know what I mean? And when I originally posted the voice mod to use with character swaps, you know, that's one of the things. Can you do a Sakura voice? Because, you know, I mean, obviously, if somebody made like Sakura looking mods or whatever, like her Kemi in a Sakura outfit, so it just basically looks like Sakura. So if you were to, you know, put a Sakura mod on there, it's not going to play like Sakura. It's still going to play like Street Fighter 6 Ryu, but, you know, you'll have the visuals and the sound, but, you know, I told the guy, like, man, this is so much work. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do another version of that. Because then I have to, like, take some clips. I got to take clips from some other Street Fighter game that has Sakura in it. And then I have to decide where the voices go and all that stuff. And I'm not going to have some stuff that's, like, there's going to be stuff that doesn't match. Like, there's going to be a lot of stuff that, like, she's not going to say that, you know, he does. So it's going to be a lot of mute stuff. And then you won't have a lot of stuff that matches, even if you do. Like, when it come out in the introduction, you know, Ryu's like, what did he say? He's either like, Itatakai ni narisoda, or what? Something else. If you're like player 2, he says something else. Hajime Oka. So, if Sakura says other shit, the mouth isn't even going to match up. So, anyway, that's why I decided not to do that. However, the person that asked me to do that mod actually commissioned somebody else to do it. So, he got what he wanted in the end. It's still there. But I'm not interested in that for the reasons that I just said. Now, anyway, I just uploaded recently that human version of everything, and it's pretty good. But of course, you have some hater, like one hater, like, well, it doesn't sound like the VA is even trying. I'm like, yeah, you listen to the stuff, it sounds like, and you know, I explain in the description, like, it's supposed to sound like, you know, Street Fighter 6 Ryu is a woman. Otherwise, if you want it to be like more cutesy or whatever, then you should use the Sakura mod that somebody commissioned, or wait for Sakura to release herself. And I'm sure that's the thing. I'm sure that when Sakura releases herself, I'm not gonna want to play her. But, you know, also, I may decide to make a proper model instead of using the swaps. Now, the swaps that I use look pretty good. The the main ones that I use, the EX Ryu, the Reina from Tekken 8, Ryu cosplay, and then the Neo hoodie. So those look good. And then I also have the I have some special character outfits as well that I use on swaps to various, because you know you can swap to whatever outfit, color 1 or outfit 1, 2, or 3. So I have swaps that have Chun-Li's outfit 3 over Ryu. I have her outfit 4 over Ryu. I have Kimberly's outfit 4 over Ryu, as well as Mai's outfit 3 over Ryu, and Cammy's summer outfit as well. So I have all those swaps as well as the ones that I use. So yeah, but I'm thinking about doing my own mesh. Fire up Blender one day and just work on that a little bit by a little bit. The only thing that's going to probably be an issue, or that I could really see as an issue, would be like the clothes. Weighting the clothes and trying to make sure the clothes don't look much worse than what's in the game. That's going to be my issue. So I'll do that, and if I don't feel like it's going great, I may commission somebody to do it. But ideally I would want three outfits to match what he currently has in the game. So that's probably something I'll do. But we'll see. Anyway, I think that's gonna do it for this video. Next video, I'll probably talk about the trips to Japan that I took last September. I haven't spoken about those. I do have some little videos up from those trips, like some driving videos and stuff. But I want to do that, and then I want to talk about my. So I bought a Skyline GTR. I did talk about it, but maybe I can drive that car while I talk, because it's very quiet. It's a very quiet car. I actually may post. I may post the exhaust off of my car for sale, the Skyline, because it's a very quiet exhaust. But I have to see if I can actually get anything for it, because exhausts, I can't imagine like a bunch of people around here like, hey, I'm looking for an exhaust Skyline GTR. So we'll see. But that's it for me for now. Bye until the next time.